This is Paul Murray Live.
Thank you, Shari. G'day, and thank you so much for watching this evening. Welcome to the Man Cave. A lot of work to do tonight in here. Tonight. Got a couple of special guests coming up, including the brand new leader for One Nation in Victoria. Well, he will talk about his plan for the state as to why he is running. Big day for them today. Also, Cos Samaras from Redbridge will take us through a brand new poll in Victoria that shows us just who is in the box seat to win this upcoming election, and, of course, what has been happening on the federal scene as well. That's just us getting started, and of course no sooks, no lefties when it comes to our debate this evening. But first, three quick things that aren't that important, but I just wanted to start with something different tonight and tell you about three little things that I found mildly amusing today. Now, kids on those e-scooters, I hear so many people complaining about them, but in Queensland in particular, you can rent them as a tourist. I've done it plenty of times, so don't lair about and carry on like a silly person. But e-bikes, e-scooters, it's a bit of a problem. And today, police in Brisbane, I should say, were holding a press conference talking about how they're going to crack down on all of this stuff. Well, guess what ended up happening? As they were making this statement today, three kids were mucking around on an e-scooter and they got caught, on camera. Talk about bad place, bad time.
Without a helmet and without a care. Until now, teens scooting past a police press conference, walking away $500 lighter.
They'll be held accountable.
There you go. It happened on Saturday, but still I find it amusing, right? Another thing to tell you. In New Zealand, they've got something absolutely right, and we should be doing it here in Australia. A law has just come into phase where the Prime Minister, Christopher Luxon, is not in a majority in government. Instead, he's propped up by the Action Party and also New Zealand First. And because those parties are a little closer to a One Nation, well, the Uni Party has to actually do something different. And guess what New Zealand has just passed? That English is the official language of New Zealand, something that does not exist here in Australia. One of the MPs responsible for it, well, has pushed back against some of the inevitable lefty criticism that, oh, this is completely unnecessary. You know, Maori is the official language. No, it isn't. It's English of New Zealand. This is a practical measure. It aligns the statute book with a long-standing practice and provides a clear statement about the status of English within New Zealand's official framework, which means signs must be in English. You can add whatever you want underneath it. You can have it in Maori, you can have it in Cantonese, but they have to be in English. What a crazy idea. Now, again, that's not about monoculturalism. That is about one of the flaws of multiculturalism, that there are some parts of all of the cities here in Australia where you could walk down a street and not see a sign in English. And fine, fair enough, if that's how locals are able to work out where to shop, but people that are visitors to the area should also be able to know. So more signs in English. Good idea. Third and final. The Victorian Labor Party, we know, has a death wish. Wait till you see this opinion poll that's just dropped tonight about just how bad their position is right now. And while the new Premier is out there on a charm offensive and he's telling us everything he won't do and who he's not as opposed to what he's doing, one of the issues that helped bring about a new Premier was the disgrace of the roads in Victoria. A pothole here, a pothole there, a pothole everywhere. And as I've said before, it is symptomatic. If you can't fix a freaking pothole, I don't trust you when it comes to the schools. I don't trust you when it comes to education. I don't trust you when it comes to law and order, let alone anything else. Well, you may have seen this on social media over the weekend, but a Labor MP thundered away in Parliament that potholes are a good thing, that potholes are actually preferred by residents. This was a serious contribution in the Victorian Parliament. Take it away, mate.
Residents who don't want it resealed because they don't like traffic going down it, so they're quite happy to have it full of potholes, might I add. So not everyone's on board with your pothole thing. They actually like it full of potholes. Yes, actually it is.
What? Now, her suggestion is that some people like the potholes because it means people who don't live in the street don't use it as a rat run to get around the awful traffic that exists in the ever-growing city of Melbourne. Well, I'm sorry, Sonia. Whether you live in the street or not live in the street, you have a right to be able to drive anywhere you want. The idea that the poor dears don't want the surface redone is immaterial. Every road in Australia should be world class. Not a rat run, not potholes, And if that's not good enough, think about the poor people who have to deliver things to you when you click, click and click. You see, they don't walk from the local pizza shop. They don't even walk from the local Macca's. They don't walk from the local Bunnings or wherever else it is that you get home delivered. They go on the street and they deserve not to ruin their bikes or cars while delivering things. 3 things that I just wanted to mention off the start of the show because they weren't what everyone else was talking about. Now, to that opinion poll that has just been dropped by the Redbridge organisation via the Financial Review, we'll talk about it with Cos Samaras in a moment or two's time. And guess what? The Coalition is now in a much stronger position than the last time they polled in Victoria. Labor is now down to just 23% primary vote. I was talking to Cos Samaras just before the show. Again, we'll talk to him on the air in a moment or two's time, as you can see on camera. And he was telling me that part of this poll was done in and around that week of leadership change last week. So either this could be absolute rock bottom for Labor, but it is an absolute wipeout scenario. In fact, if you do the maths pretty simply here, you take Labor, you take the Greens, you take other, it only gets them to the high 40s. It doesn't get them over the 50%. The Coalition and One Nation alone would be able to get together when it comes to preferences and get them to basically 52-48. In some estimates, it is now 53-47. It's just a poll. One Nation at 22% would be able to easily win a spot in each of the regions in the upper house. And that is well and truly a major change coming to Victorian politics. But of course, another poll was one worth talking about. It's the one that we mentioned to you first last night, which again was the Redbridge poll. And the reason I show you that poll is because it was bang on at the last election, as was the YouGov and News24 Pulse poll. They were both bang on. That's why I show you both of those. I show you the Essential because it comes from The Guardian. That's the information the left is getting. I show you other polls like Morgan because it bounces around each and every week. And of course, I show you other ones because they come from other media organisations. And sometimes you just need to pick a marker, and there are lots of markers out there. But the media, well, it had to swallow a headline today that they weren't all that excited about.
One Nation has once again pulled ahead of Labor, according to a new Redbridge poll.
One Nation is back on top in the latest federal poll.
But hang on, I thought the past month was a disaster for One Nation.
Pauline Hanson has been accused of smearing Muslim Australians by claiming they come here to exploit the NDIS. The One Nation leader has been in London catching up with her long-term admirer, the British anti-Islam agitator Tommy Robinson.
But it was a meeting of the minds and conspiracy theories, most of them hostile to immigrants and to Muslims in particular.
Pauline Hanson's explanation of monoculture has lit a fire under the Albanese government.
Pauline Hanson has told a major Conservative conference in the UK that Australians are stupid for not banning the burqa and for allowing transgender athletes to play in women's sport.
Pauline Hanson has today launched a fierce defence of her relationship with Gina Rinehart. While pushing back against accusations, she supports a white Australia.
Now, most of those things were the lead stories. Remember the lead story of man yells at dog? Well, according to this poll, people are fine with what was being put out there because their vote just didn't go up. They now are in front of the Coalition, in front of Labor and the number one political party in the country. Will that change in a month's time? Probably. Will it change back positively a month after that? Yeah, probably. But a conversation, again, worth having with Cos is about just how much of that 30% is now to be locked away as the One Nation floor. Their ceiling, of course, will come and go between now and the election. Meantime, can the protesters keep turning up to the events that One Nation has? Because guess what? You're not helping your cause, you're helping the cause of everyone who understands why we need a change of government in Victoria and why particularly many people are going to vote One Nation. These lunatics think they're on the right side of history. I tell you what, all they're going to do is push up the One Nation vote. Okay. Another thing in One Nation world today. James Ashby, well known to you all as a guest on this program and frequently across our network. He's now the official party director Now, this is a really big move because he's gone from being Pauline Hanson's Chief of Staff, a former Morrison staffer is about to become that, but now he's going to be even more involved in the big picture of things. He, of course, has been an absolute champion when it comes to things like creating the cartoon, their social media push, all the rest of it. They got money behind them and they've got big brains in the operation. This is why this ain't no fluke, and that's why James Ashby was on with Peter Credlin, speaking of big brains, earlier tonight.
I foresaw exactly what path the media were going to go down, and that was that we haven't had people within One Nation with government experience other than Barnaby Joyce. And so 2 months ago, we set about tasking ourselves to find somebody with government experience and somebody who was going to take the party forward. I might just add, Peter, this is not the only get. We've got being announced in the next couple of weeks. We've got more. And I've kept this under wraps for quite some time. Chris Taylor, a great former Liberal operative within the Prime Minister's office, but also too, we've got a new announcement which we'll make in the coming week of a former Labor member who has joined our ranks because, quite simply, they've had a gutful of Labor as well.
Congratulations, James. More strength to your arm, and love you as always, Peter. Make sure you check in with her at 6 o'clock every evening. Straight after, of course, the great Chris Kenny, before the wonderful Andrew Bolt, the delightful Sherry Markson, us, the late debate, and the beautiful Rita Panny, the Persian Princess. We got you set all night long here on News 24. So the story everyone has told you tonight is that there is a brand new crop of people that will be running for the Victorian Parliament, most of them in the upper house.
One Nation leader Pauline Hanson has unveiled her Victorian team ahead of the state election.
One Nation is eyeing off a big win in Victoria as the party reveals candidates for the November state election.
And sitting at 22% in the polls, again, that would give them basically a seat in every part of the places, the districts that exist in the upper house. They've already got one there in Ricky Lee Tyrrell, that's her with the dark hair, standing next to Pauline Hanson, who seemed pretty happy today.
It's very important to each and every one of us and those people that have put up their hands to represent One Nation in the Victorian state elections. Victorians I constantly hear from, whether it's here in Victoria or whether it's overseas, doesn't matter where I go, whether it's Queensland, New South Wales, they're all saying that Victoria is an absolute mess.
Now, later tonight, I too will be meeting the new leader, and that is Warren Pickering. He's running as currently the only lower house candidate. He's going to be running for the seat of Pakenham, which is in and around the East Gippsland area. He is based in Warragul, I believe it is. He is a former brickie. He's been in the Australian Army, where he's gone overseas and done much domestic humanitarian and disaster relief, according to his biography. He's also a single father of a teenage daughter. We'll talk to him about his plans for the state. In fact, this was him at the press conference today about why he's stepping up and in the fight, the leader of One Nation in Victoria.
It's not lost on us the gravity of this undertaking in Victoria. It's really not. As the boss alluded to, we are on the precipice of social and economic collapse, and anybody who doesn't believe that is simply not paying attention. As such, we've engaged in a concerted effort to cultivate talent from within the community. We are of the firm belief that it's politicians that got us into this mess, and we're sure as hell not going to leave it to politicians to get us out.
Now, again, today the announcement was not just about Warren as the single person in the lower house and their leader, but a lot of people in the upper house as well. Again, as I said, Ricky Lee Tyrrell, she's already there. She's going around hopefully for another term. There's a couple of other people that have joined her. But can I say, well done to this bloke? Because Mark Nicholson is a man who's got a set of stones. He is the brains and the voice behind all the characters in the cartoons. He's a former lawyer. He's a great family man. Again, reading from his bio off the website, he was even a criminal lawyer at one point. He's a small business owner. But this bloke is fearless. This bloke is fearless. He is an absolute asset to the party, and he'll be fantastic in Victorian politics. I know you see him regularly with Chris Kenny. I can't wait for him to take his spot inside the Victorian Parliament, but he wasn't on with Chris today. Instead, he was on with my mate Andrew Bolt.
I've experienced what it's like to have government pushing down on you, stopping you from employing people and growing. I've had Screen Australia, I've had institutions trying to tell me that this industry is not for me. And then, of course, I found my home with One Nation. But really what's enlightened me is that I've seen that these are real people. Pauline Hanson is the real deal. And every decision she makes is in the best interests of Australia. That's the most important policy of all.
And this is the most frightening thing for the left. This bloke, of course, is at the upper end of the millennial world, well and truly a world of Generation X voters, next generation representation and renewal for that political movement. As for the other people that are on the list, again, you can meet them in the many months between now and the election. Ricky Lee-Tyrrell going back around, she's the incumbent. Colleen Harkin is an education expert. Fiona Lopez, human resources manager. Chris Burston is a Geelong councillor and former copper. Aaron Sanford is a lawyer. And Natalie Adams is an office manager. You will learn about them more. Warren Pickering on the program this evening. And Kos Samaras in a moment or two to talk about the state of play, both at the Victorian and federal level. Big night for those who care about politics and how it really happens. Stick with us. Now, as we know, the Prime Minister thinks he's the greatest of all time and he's not had a day off all this year. So, of course, he's taken a week off. Bugger Garma, bugger cost of living. Petrol, of course, has gone back up overnight, but he doesn't care because he doesn't pay for petrol, hasn't, well, for the best part of 30 years. Why? Because he's had a fuel card paid for by you and I. He sits, of course, in the back seat of a limousine, unlike you and I. But one thing you need to know is that the value of your house has gone down. It is going down as we speak. Now, again, the theory about this is cheaper homes are better for people who haven't got one yet. I'll explain why that is a myth as well. But we now know that the market is falling, not crashing. I'm not going to say crash, that's over 10%. Correction is over 10%, but we're well and truly on our way to a correction. There are those websites where you can put in the value of your house and have a look at how it has gone. It has gone well and truly down since this government turned lies into law and changed all of those things when it comes to the budget. And, of course, their failure to deal with inflation means interest rates have gone up once, twice, 7, 10, 12, 15 times on their watch, meaning right now rates are as bad as they were in the worst political year for the government, 2024. So we are right back where they started. So all of this apparently was about first home buyers and first home buyers being able to get into the scheme. Well, the 5% deposit scheme, which I have no problem with, believe it or not, according to researchers, makes it harder for people on low incomes to be able to buy a property. Hang on. And the 5% deposit scheme, well, there's no limit on who can apply for it. So what about this one? High earners are flooding the zone. Now, they should theoretically be able to save 10% for a deposit, but taxpayers are underwriting couples who make up to $675,000 a year under the scheme because there's no means testing. New figures have shown that more than 35% of first home buyer guarantees granted under Labor removed income caps, went to households that would have previously been ineligible. About 10% of the 17,000 individuals who've received the 5% deposit guarantee since October last year are earning over $190,000 per annum. They are in the top tax bracket. Why? Because it is all about the triangle of dependence. The reason the government wants as many people to be reliant or thankful to the government means they get more votes. It's not an accident, it's by design, and it is happening before our eyes. But again, what about those people who supposedly all of these intergenerational changes happened, all of the justification for the lies that have now become law? Well, of course, it's about helping poorer people being able to get onto the property ladder. Well, I've just shown you. Research, even reported in the freaking Guardian, shows that that is not actually taking place. The scheme is currently being taken advantage of by people who theoretically would not actually qualify it if there was an upper limit on the number of people who could actually get access to that scheme. But as I have said the whole way through this, the single biggest problem for people to buy a house in Australia, regardless of how old or young you are, is the deposit required to buy the house. Be it 5%, be it 10%, let alone the stamp duty, because, of course, for all the first-time buyers, great, but the people who've moved from the one-bedroom or studio apartment after they have a partner, maybe have kids, maybe have their parents move in with them, no such detail. So, of course, 10% deposit plus 10% on stamp duty. You've got to save for that. Well, how long does it take someone to save for that? I had a look today, and according to one of the financial institutions, this is the Police Bank, but it's essentially what used to be a credit union. So this is the information they've got out there. If you're a saving couple, it'll take half the time it takes to save if you are single, obviously. According to the latest nationwide Domain First Home Buyers report, the first home buyers couples in Sydney take around 6 years and 8 months to save $116,000 or a 20% deposit. So, okay, what, 3 years and 4 months? These, of course, were studies done before the interest rate rises. Single savers, it'll take you 13 years. Or again, let's halve it. Let's be generous and say 6.5. Oh, yeah, Albo, he's the winner, isn't he? He wins every time because what's the changes for the budget? It was not about intergenerational equity. It was about saving their backside when it comes to the budget. The lie's a law and you are paying for it. And if you're in a house and you're thinking you might have to sell it in the next couple of years, double check because the value of it has gone down since the budget and those interest rates have gone up 15 times since he became the Prime Minister. Now, I want to talk about the census because a few people have stopped me in the street, literally, and said, why is this happening? Why does it have to happen? Well, of course, censuses or censi, I presume that's the plural, have been happening since Herod was a boy. Right? It's been around for a long time. It is, of course, a way of the government being able to know exactly how many people there are, not just in the country, not just in the state, not just in the city, but maybe in your local government area, maybe even specifically in your suburb. Why does that matter? Because they need to work out if there's more kids than before, well, we've got to have more schools. If there's more aged care than needed, then we can up that, let alone infrastructure and all the rest of it. Is it compulsory to do the census? Yes, is the answer. You'll be fined $364 a day if you do not complete it by the 10th of this month. You can do it now, and that's fine, but you have to have it done by the day they say it has to be done. Meantime, do you have to answer every question? Yes, you have to answer every question. If you answer falsely, there is giant fines. I'm not sure how they can calculate that, but you need to know. And again, why is the census important? Because it gives us the data, and the data is important. It shows us the makeup of the country, be it male or female. It tells us about the median age. It tells us about how many families there are, how many kids, how many households there are. It tells us about the number of houses, weekly income. It also tells us how many people had their parents born overseas. You can see that that went from 34% in 2016 to the last census, 34 to 36%. And these numbers tell us about the changing and true Australia. Also expect that one of the big changes that will happen this time is the number of people with no religion at all will continue to increase. It went from 29% in 2016 to 38% in 2021. It will be pushing into the 40s at least. Other religions, well, those numbers, they flow up and down. A man who loves the data, I'm sure he gets just as excited about the census as the people at the Bureau of Statistics is Cos Samaras, of course, from the Redbridge organisation, and you can see their poll appearing in the Australian Financial Review. He joins us now. Are you a census kind of guy? You love getting into that little quick stats. You love the little electorate breakdowns that tell us how many kids are over this or make up of it. There's a lot of political information in this census.
Christmas for me, really.
Correct. Well, certainly birthday is opinion poll, and you get it a birthday at least once a month or a couple of times a month, and you've just given us one when it comes to Victoria. Let's again have a look here. Labor's rock bottom seems to be 23% in Victoria. So even with all the help from the Greens and all the help from others, it still wouldn't be enough to win on a two-party preferred basis. If you loosely put together the preferences from One Nation, it gets the coalition over the line. My guess would be that the coalition's number clearly has got stronger because people not just have rejected Labor, but they are buying into the Jess Wilson version of things, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's pretty clear that One Nation's taken a bit of a hit in the primary vote over the last couple of months, and the beneficiary is actually the coalition. So what's going on here, I think, is that there's a group of former Liberal voters, National Party voters, who are viewing Jess Wilson as the change agent. And so they're going back to the coalition. The biggest concern for Labor should be that their primary is at 23, which is the lowest we've ever recorded. And it's still sitting at 23, even though One Nation's dropping in support.
So obviously 23% is it statewide. It'll be slightly higher in some places. It'll be slightly lower in others. We certainly know that the Jacinta Allen Daniel Andrews version of things was trying to push it up as high as possible in people with a university degree, let alone people that are part of dependence on government, hence that triangle that I keep talking about here. But give me an idea, again, One Nation, I think, were very clever today because they didn't announce, 500 candidates. They had a lower house leader, that'll be the bloke who'll do the interviews, but they wanted to show all the people in the upper house because the most likely result is, we'll see how many, I won't pin you to that downstairs, but given that number, they'd be able to get at least one up in all of the different parts of the regions of Victoria in the upper house, which of course could mean, regardless of what the government is, they become, well, the rubber stamp, the handbrake or the accelerator, depending on what they think.
Yeah, look, the thing I took out of their media coverage today is that the team looks pretty well put together, professional, fairly young, right? Not the sort of candidates that I would say the Labor side of politics would have wished to be projected on the TV screen. And so it should be a concern for the left side of politics. There's no question about that. But more importantly, what this will now do is make it very hard for Labor to convince people in the outer suburbs of Melbourne in particular that they should not vote for One Nation and go back to Labor. So what you've got here is a fairly presentable professional outfit that is actually eating into Labor's vote. Most of Labor's, I would say, attrition in their primary vote is via One Nation. And there's a bit of I'll say, attrition versus the Liberal Party in Melbourne's eastern suburbs. But overwhelmingly, Labor's got a problem with One Nation. I think today's announcement doesn't make it any easier for them.
Let's go federal now. Obviously, you released that last night. Again, One Nation up on top at 31%, followed by Labor at 29%. Now, let's be honest, give or take 3 points this way, 3 points that way, 4 points this way, 4 points that way. There is going to be a bounce and bounce in both directions about which party is going to be above the line as the so-called most popular party in the country. Reality is no one's near 50, so you need a whole bunch of votes to come with you. What do you see as the story behind this poll? What did people tell you when you went and asked them, why have you moved your vote, according to this, by about 6 points in one direction and, again, about 6 points in another?
Yeah, look, it all fluctuates now within the sort of margin of error. I would say that the next big move in the polling numbers will be whether the economy improves or worsens. I think we're now looking at a One Nation primary that hovers in the high 20s, low 30s. Labor's primary vote is pretty much in that space. There's a geographic, I would say, component to all of this. So Labor's doing a lot better in the big cities, a lot worse outside the big cities. That means it could still win an election, but it's got a lot of problems when it comes to Queensland because that's where the difference does apply. And in the outer suburbs of Brisbane, like in the federal seat of Blair and other electorates which they gained at the last election, they will lose to One Nation unless these numbers change.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see and trying to remember that a big swathe of seats were won in southeast Queensland and again in the suburbs of Brisbane. This is the difference between 76 seats that you need for a majority, 94 where you can burn a backbench. Well, again, the economy is going to start to churn through some of those people. And as Philip Curry wrote when he was, again, doing his analysis of this when it all came out last night, I thought was quite interesting that basically this picture puts us right back where we were post-budget. Now, obviously there had been a drop in One Nation support a month after the budget, and now it's back. We had a lot of people claiming that Hanson's trip to the UK was, the beginning of a disaster. Certainly, the National Press Club speech, big problem. Certainly, Labor curious voters on the industrial relations stuff, absolutely a potential problem here. But why did people rediscover, or again, we're just talking about the natural fluctuations that can happen, and because it's not an election tomorrow, it does bounce a bit?
Yeah, that's right. The economy's not improving, is it, Paul? So this is the fundamental problem. And so people are expressing to us as pollsters their frustration. The only remedy really for Labor or the coalition is to prove to these voters that they are the solution to a problem that many Australians are facing, and that is that inflationary crisis hit them like a 10 ton of bricks, really. And it's a problem that I think that both major parties are going to have to confront come 2028, because if the economy is still in that same state, and that is the inflation crisis is still present, people are paying enormous amount of money in interest rate repayments, it's going to be a significant hurdle to overcome.
All right, last one here. Obviously, Coalition, multiple polls, and yours shows it too, that they have had, 4 points a couple of points is not a bad movement. It is right on that margin of error, but it is a little bit of a trend about it coming back. Again, you have a look at that poll, and if you just look at where does 4 go, well, I don't think it came from the Greens, but where do you think that Coalition vote has come back from?
A little bit from One Nation, a little bit from Labor. So what we're seeing is a lot of sort of transaction occurring under the radar. The coalition's hovering in the low 20s, high teens. This will bounce around for a while until I think we get closer to an election and Australians are forced to make a genuine choice. So what I'm trying to say here is they've got a bit of a blank canvas, whether it's Angus Taylor, whether it's Anthony Albanese. They've both got a bit of a window to actually paint that picture. And if they do it correctly, they might actually drag some more votes off One Nation and over to their column. But if they fail in doing that, we're going to have an interesting 2028.
Yeah, well, I mean, also one more thing that was I noticed, of course, in your poll was that basically, be it cost of living, be it housing, be it everything else, sort of the none of the above was the single biggest number. That was in the 30s everywhere, meaning it is up for grabs, it is up for positivity, it is there to be bought, or it is there to move around. And then, of course, the difference between a poll and a mid-season report and the grand final. Cos, thank you so much. Enjoy your statistical birthday before you have another one in a few weeks' time. Thank you, mate. He's fantastic, isn't he? Redbridge there, Cos Samaras. He, of course, more details on his Substack, or you can find his stuff on all of the socials. No sooks, no lefties. Let's get straight into that next here on Paul Murray Live. Thank you so much for watching. How's this for No Sooks, No Lefties? None other than the great James Morrow. You can see him on the US Report on Fridays. You can see him on Outsiders on Sunday. You can, of course, read him in the Daily Telegraph. Matt Canavan, so good to see you as well, sir. Of course, the leader of the National Party, the man who wants to put Aussies first. Remember when that was a slogan, the Labor Party. Now, it's a shocking statement of truth and obviousness, including that in New Zealand they have just passed a law that English is the official language. Does it mean you cannot speak anything else at home? No. But does it mean that all the signs have to be at least starting in English and you can add whatever you want underneath? Great idea, Matt, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I suppose it's probably a bigger issue over there in New Zealand because they've had some multilingual issues with native languages, etc. I mean, most of our signs are in English, I think, so don't necessarily need to take such radical steps, but it should stay that way, no doubt about it.
All right, well, certainly, James, you're part of Australia and being able to see big swathes of particularly Western Sydney, but it's not just Western Sydney, it's lots of it. There are streets and streets where you wouldn't see anything but the street name in English.
Well, yeah, and I mean, look, I don't think it's so much about the commercial signs, in front of your Arabic shops, your Chinese shops or whatever. There's a whole series of issues that we can talk about there, whether or not, the multiculturalism of old has turned into the new tribalism and people ghettoizing together in different places that don't incorporate in the mainstream. But New Zealand's got a really interesting situation that's very different, because they've got this coexistence between the Maori population and the post-Maori settler population. They've got the Treaty of Waitangi. But here's the interesting thing. You go to New Zealand newspapers and things like websites and so on, there's this huge infusion of Maori terminology. I remember a couple of years ago, I was trying to research something about something that was happening in New Zealand to compare it to what was happening here in Australia, and it was actually almost impenetrable. I couldn't understand it. And it's so interesting, too, because when you look at the Maori population in New Zealand, unlike our indigenous Australians who've been here for, however many tens of thousands of years they're saying this week, they only showed up about 800 years ago. So the city of London is older than Maori settlement. They displaced other people. Right. City of Paris is... So it's a much different sort of thing. And so you have to, make sure that English is there as the lingua franca and that you don't just have a minority language that is then sort of taking over the whole show.
I love talking about mental health because it's real. It's real in every part of our communities, right? We all know it either in and around our own lives or certainly our family lives. And also I want to talk about boys, not because I don't care about the future of girls. I've got two and I want them to have the best future as female in the world, right? But boys are suffering. Men are suffering, particularly in regional areas. And Matt, you've been doing something about it, and the most important thing, which is talking to people about it.
Look, it's one of the first things I did as leader of the Nationals, Paul. I think it's an incredibly serious issue, the lack of direction, focus on making sure particularly young boys can turn into men. And so I asked Lou O'Brien, the member for Wide Bay, an ex-copper, he's seen a lot through his life, to be a special envoy for men and boys. He's been travelling around the country, hearing from different groups, and not just men and boys. Obviously, a lot of women are involved in this discussion too. They want strong men in their lives as well. And we had a great discussion today in Rockhampton, hosted by Michelle Landry. A really good point was made about at this meeting about support for new dads. The special envoys for men and boys, but I want almost to add dads there. They're the almost most important type of men. And you go through these classes before you have a baby through hospitals. I did it, done it 5 times. And very important, obviously, to support the mother, and they go through a lot more than we do through childbirth. But there's a local guy here in Rocky who's for when they're doing the breastfeeding classes, he takes the men out and teaches them about what to expect with a newborn baby, how important it is to be involved in their lives and be that dad there, that role model for children, for your children. So I think that's a great initiative, actually, to broaden that prenatal education out to the dads as well as the mums.
Well, that's it, mate. Give us the details, because I'd love to talk to that bloke on the telly as well. I think it's a really important conversation. Make sure you follow Matt on all the socials for that. James, I was noticing that you, like many of us, deeply concerned about what happened in Spain over the weekend. 60,000 people just jumped the fence from Morocco.
Yeah.
But maybe the red line has now been crossed, that in Europe you might actually start to need your passport when you pass through a border.
Well, yeah, this is really interesting. I mean, we saw this, and there's still a lot of conjecture, Paul, about what exactly touched this off. Part of it's the pull factor of Spain. Spain, remember, has this Pedro Sanchez guy who is the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party guy. So, I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. He's a commie, okay? He's a commie, that's it. And they've had all these rulings that say, you come in, we'll give you everything you want. That's the pull factor. The push factor, though, there seems to be some sort of Islamist involvement that's trying to destabilize Morocco ahead of its elections. So other times these crossings have happened, they've been provoked by Morocco. This may be something different. The fascinating thing about this is what everybody needs to know. 2015, we had Angela Merkel, Wir schaffen das, we can do this, we can take the millions and millions and millions of people in, and that's why Christmas markets are so vibrant in Europe now. But then, now finally you've had this, and you had not just Italy with Giorgia Meloni at the helm, but you've had Finland, the Czech Republic, France, even Germany saying, hang on, this is not good. Ursula von der Leyen, the head of the EU, said no. Italy said, we're pulling out of Schengen. France put their borders up. This is, I think, the moment when Europe has suddenly finally said, this is terrifying. We cannot let this go on. So, and, of course, the commentary, Paul, it's like, oh, the far right is driving the conversation. It's like, well, do you want 60,000 people swarming in 24 hours, or, do you want to have a little border control? Think about it.
100%.
Yeah.
Just back to my conversation with Cos, Matt, the reality of the economy at the moment. The Prime Minister, and obviously hasn't had a day off all year. I mean, sure, the football games and all the rest of it, there's some photographic evidence that it hasn't been 24/7 work from him. But interest rates are basically now, they are literally where they were in the worst political year for the government, being 2024. There's an exhaustion factor from people about the economy, and there is a knowledge that the government, while it might announce a little this, a little that, it's not really helping. In fact, it finds ways to keep inflation running too hot, too hard, which is why we've had those interest rate rises. As a person who would like to be part of an alternative government, how important is having a serious plan about the economy, that is really front and centre for what yourself and Angus have to present as the threshold before there is consideration of a change of government?
Look, I don't think it's anything new, Paul. Bill Clinton's advisor probably had it right. It's the economy's stupid, and our economy has been pretty much the worst in the advanced world. We've had the biggest reduction in living standards in the advanced world since COVID, and people are frustrated about that. We, particularly living in a country with blessed with so much natural resources, we should have rivers of gold, but people are really struggling. And what's worse, I think, is people understand sometimes that there are economic impacts that are outside the control of governments, but this government seems to have just given up. They've really are putting out the white flag on economic growth. They notionally had a plan to stimulate growth around hydrogen exports. Remember that? They don't talk about that anymore. Lower power prices. Remember that? They don't talk about that anymore. And they're left with now an economic plan that involves jacking up taxes. That's it. And jacking up taxes they promised they wouldn't do. The tax increases based on a lie. That's not going to stimulate economic growth. And we've got a simple plan now that I've been selling with Angus last week. It's not an easy thing to do. There's no easy answers, as Ronald Reagan would say, but there are simple ones. And the simple thing we've got to do is lower taxes, lower energy prices by scrapping net zero, lower migration. And if we lower all of those three things, that will add up, in my view, very clearly to higher living standards because we'll have more housing infrastructure available with a much more sustainable migration intake. We'll use all our natural resources to lower power prices. And, of course, lowering taxes. We're going to scrap labour taxes, and also make sure we scrap the silent inflation tax by indexing thresholds, tax thresholds. All of that will add up to stimulating business investment, economic growth, get our country going again. That's our plan. As I say, it's a simple one. It'll be hard to achieve, but it's something, I think, that can give people hope for the future.
Good man. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. No sooks, no lefties. That was fun on a Monday. Good luck. 5 kids. Imagine remembering all those birthdays. I suppose it'll be easy because, every couple of months? I get it, right? It's not easy being a dad. 5. All the strength to your arm, mate. All right, quick break. Back with more. The new leader of One Nation in Victoria joins us for his first TV interview. He shall do so next. Warren Pickering is the man who is going to be the leader for One Nation in Victoria, and he joins us now on Paul Murray Live. Warren, lovely to meet you, mate. Congratulations.
Yeah, Paul, thank you very much, mate. We've got our work cut out for us, that's for sure.
I love today, and clearly it was the message, November to remember. The expectations are, obviously, on the polling that was there when it was an empty seat. Now it's you in that seat is still very strong. What a way to start, that there is a very significant amount of support for One Nation. Certainly that'll produce theoretically, quite a strong performance in the upper house, along with yourself and many others in the lower house. Give me an idea. Obviously, success is that you become the Premier, but give me an idea about the fight between now and then and about what you think you might be able to do.
Look, mate, I think the fight between now and then is to get out there and engage our communities and ensure that we can secure the trust of the Victorian people. We've never governed before. We were well aware of that, but I think it pays for us to be able to get out there and remind our communities, that say, well, what have you've never held portfolios before, you've never governed before. Well, how's the current lot doing? They've governed many times for many years, and how's that going for us? At the end of the day, if Victorians want meaningful change, they have to vote for it, mate. So, look, the slogan just sort of came out of nowhere, November to remember, but I think we'll run with it. Let's be honest, it's got a bit of a catch to it, hasn't it?
That's it. Fire the liar seemed to work, so why not November to remember? Now, what about these protesters out the front of this event? You're in Hawthorn tonight where people were able to meet the candidates. You sold that out, in just a couple of hours. What about these idiots outside carrying on? I mean, obviously you don't want anyone to be threatened, you don't want anyone to be heckled, but these people help your cause, don't they?
Look, they do, mate, but this, again, it highlights a broader issue here, especially in Victoria, as you well know. We originally wanted to hold today's press conference on the steps of Parliament, but we were advised not to. I mean, we still chose to take that advice, but the reality is we claim to live in a democratic state. We're simply not anymore. You cannot express or share a value set outside of those of the raging intolerant without them turning up to try and shut down all dialogue. It's not good enough, mate. But I think at this event specifically, we've had them turn up and, look, all they did here was serve as effectively a doorbell for when the Senator herself turned up.
Very good, very good. All right, now let's get to know you. Obviously, a lot of time to talk about ideas between now and November. You're a 43-year-old bloke who's had some pretty incredible experiences. I'll get to one of the personal ones in a moment. But tell us about your time, well, all the way from being a brickie to in the army. Tell me about what it is about your life that that puts you in a place where you're not the average Polly.
Yeah, look, mate, at the end of the day, I was, raised on a potato farm out in Gippsland, became a bricklayer as a young fella, as an apprentice, worked all aspects of that industry in domestic housing, commercial high-rise. So the CFMU back in the day, mate, in late 90s, early 2000s. It's been a long road since then, but I didn't join the army. I had my daughter when I was quite young, at 21. I didn't join the army until I was 29, but I joined as a combat engineer, posted to North Queensland, had multiple operational deployments in combat zones and humanitarian aid disaster relief operations and on humanitarian aid disaster relief, operations and foreign engagement exercises. It's been a long day, mate.
I get it.
So, look, I had a fantastic service, mate. I can't complain at all. It was an honour and a privilege to serve my country. Came back to sunny Victoria. Look, I was a single father, had sole custody of my daughter since she was about 14 years old. Moved back to Victoria during about COVID thereafter and decided I need to get involved with the political sphere and start to make a bit of change. Reached out to the One Nation Party. Senator Hanson and the team decided to endorse me for the first time in the 2022 federal election, and we just sort of stayed on and organically fell into that role of state president in this party. So we've just been building things. A lot of people don't realise we've been at the grassroots level in Victoria for a lot of years now, mate. 2022 was our first state campaign, and we've got a 100% success rate. So we've worked at leveraging that over the last couple of years and developing the party and the brand in Victoria, and I think we've come a long way, absolutely. But look, mate, at the end of the day, and this is what I said in the press conference earlier, we're looking to cultivate talent from within the community. We want real salt-of-the-earth Victorians who understand the systemic issues that we as a society face. And I think that's what I personally bring to the table, mate. So, look, that's a bit about me and the team and some of the attributes that we're after specifically, Paul.
Now, I'm up against the clock here, and I'm sure we can have a really long chat about this, and I look forward to doing so both on and off the air. As a single dad, there's a lot of single parents that are watching us, or people who've come through those homes. That experience is sort of the central one of life, which is being a parent. What's it like being a single dad of a little lady who you love very much?
Look, I think it's different for everyone, mate. And, you know, you don't get to pick the material that they're built out of, you know what I mean? I think there's a lot of nature and nurture, there is absolutely, but I'm lucky enough that my daughter's now 22 years old, and I think in a lot of ways she's an old soul. So, look, I was very blessed in that respect. I don't think it's the same for everyone, but look, there certainly seems to be a lot of stigma against men trying to gain custody of their children as a sole parent. So, look, there's a lot to be done in that space. I think, mate, equality there and the blatant misuse of police and family law courts in that situation needs to be looked at. You know, we've seen a 3-to-1 ratio, disproportionate ratio of men committing suicides, and I think we need to start recording the statistical data around, you know, what was going on in those men's lives at the time. It's women as well, absolutely.
Yeah.
But again, that's short response, mate.
No, I get it. Warren, what a pleasure to meet you. I think plenty of people will feel exactly like me, that this is exactly the type of person we want in our politics and certainly into our parliaments. All the best, mate. We'll chat many times between now and the big day. All the best, Warren. Nice to meet you.
Thanks for your time, mate. Hooroo.
How good is he? Warren Pickering, the leader of One Nation in Victoria. Quick break. Back with more here on Paul Murray Live. A little bit of social media nonsense before we're done. I cannot wander off into the sunset without showing you what happened with your tax dollars today, of course. We pay for them, they pay staff, and they make crap like this. Wow, how last year. Here's the late debate.